I wasn't supposed to be home that day. I had packed my truck the night before, kissed my wife goodbye, and headed out before sunrise for a 3-day business trip in Denver. My ranch was quiet, the horses still asleep, the wind slow and soft through the oaks. It was my favorite sound in the world. That land wasn't just dirt and wood to me. It was my father's legacy. 40 acres of open sky, every inch earned through sweat and years of service. I'd spent most of my life as a police officer, and after retirement, I wanted peace. Just me, my wife, and the land. But peace doesn't last long when you live under an HOA. Our HOA president, Karen, was the kind of woman who treated rules like religion. She'd fined neighbors for parking too close to mailboxes, sent letters about grass height, and even measured my fence once because it looked too high. She always wore those oversized sunglasses, that fake smile, and spoke like she was running for office. 2 weeks before my trip, she'd stop by uninvited. "Mr. Walker," she said, arms folded, "the board has concerns about your property's condition. The barn looks dated." "It's a barn," I said flatly. "It's supposed to look dated." Her smile didn't move. "Well, the HOA has the right to intervene if we feel property values are being affected." I'd laughed then. "You're welcome to try." I thought that was the end of it, but 3 days later, I found out it wasn't halfway to Denver. About 150 miles out, I got a call from my neighbor, Doug. He's an old rancher, quiet man, doesn't say much unless it's important. His voice sounded tight. "Hey, you home?" he asked. "No, on the road, why?" "Well," he paused, "there's a couple of cars up by your barn. Some lady showing folks around like she owns the place." My knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. "What did you just say?" "She said the property's going up for sale. She even had a sign." I hit the brakes so hard the truck fishtailed. My heart was pounding in my chest. "I'll call you back," I said and turned around. The drive back felt endless. My mind was racing, and was Doug mistaken? Was this some misunderstanding? No. I knew exactly who it was. Karen. That woman had been sniffing around my property for months, but trying to sell it? That was insanity. When I finally pulled up to my gate, I saw it immediately. My private property sign was gone. In its place, a small "for sale" sign stuck crooked in the dirt. My blood ran cold. There were 2 cars parked near the barn, a silver Lexus and a white SUV. I could hear voices, laughter. I parked quietly off the road, grabbed my phone, and started recording. As I crept up behind the trees, I saw her, Karen, wearing that same smug grin, holding a clipboard and walking 3 people through my property like she was a real estate agent. "This area is perfect for expansion," she said cheerfully. "The owner's moving out soon, so we're offering early viewings." My jaw clenched. The owner's moving out soon? I wasn't moving anywhere. I stepped out from behind the trees and started walking toward them. My boots hit the gravel loud enough for her to turn. The look on her face was priceless. "Oh!" she gasped. "Mr. Walker, I didn't expect you back so soon." "No," I said calmly, still recording. "I bet you didn't." The buyers looked confused. "Wait," one of them asked. "You're the owner?" "I am," I said. "And this woman is trespassing." Karen's face flushed red. "This isn't what it looks like," she stammered. "I was just showing them the property as a courtesy to the HOA." "As a courtesy?" I cut her off. "You tore down my sign, put up a fake "for sale" post, and started giving tours. That's not courtesy, that's fraud." Her voice trembled now. "You're misunderstanding. It's just, I thought you were planning to sell. You thought wrong." I took another step closer. "You've crossed every line there is, Karen, and you're on camera." Her smile broke. The buyers backed away slowly. One of them whispered something and got into their car. Karen turned to me, panic starting to replace her confidence. "Look, we can talk about this. Off record?" "No," I said. "We'll talk about it on record." I called the sheriff's office right there in front of her. "It's Walker," I said. "Got a case of trespassing and property fraud in progress." Her eyes widened. "You're calling the police?" "Karen," I said, lowering my phone but keeping it steady on her, "you really should have read my mail before trying to sell my ranch." "What?" she asked, confused. "I'm Chief Walker, retired chief of police." her face drained of color. For a second, the only sound was the wind, the horses in the distance, and her shaky breathing. "Let's see you talk your way out of this one," I said quietly. Within minutes, I heard sirens. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing across the field. The deputy, a young guy named Miller I'd trained years ago, stepped out. He saw me, nodded respectfully, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, can I see some ID?" Karen started to sputter. "This is all a mistake! I was helping the community." Miller looked at me. "You have video?" "Oh, I've got plenty," I said, holding up my phone. Karen's fake calm started to crack. She looked around like she could still find a way out. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "The HOA has authority here." Miller shook his head. "Not that kind of authority, ma'am." As she realized it was over, she glared at me, eyes full of venom. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I smirked. "I already regret ever trusting you." The deputies led her to the cruiser. I watched the sunset hit the fields, painting everything gold, the same land she tried to steal. But something in me knew this wasn't over yet. Karen was the kind of woman who didn't give up that easily, and I had a feeling the real fight was just beginning. The deputies left Karen in the cruiser, still muttering under her breath, and I stood there, watching her fuming face fade into the red and blue lights. The buyers had driven off, shaking their heads. Some waved at me awkwardly, murmuring apologies for the confusion. I knew she wouldn't stop. Not now, not ever if she could find another loophole to exploit. Karen was the type who thrived on power. She didn't just want to control yards or fences. She wanted control over people, over decisions, over everything. That night, after the deputies had driven off, I sat on my porch with my wife. The wind rustled through the oaks, carrying with it the smell of fresh hay. I poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to calm the adrenaline that had my chest pounding. "She'll try something," I said. My wife nodded silently, knowing me too well. "I've dealt with people like her before." She thinks rules are her sword, not her shield. But this time, she's on the wrong side. The next morning, I reviewed the footage from my phone. Every second of Karen's fraud, her lies, and her trespassing was documented. I transferred the files to my personal drive, backed them up, and sent copies to the county sheriff's office. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. By afternoon, I started receiving calls from neighbors. Some were angry, some were relieved. One couple, who had almost bought the ranch thinking I was selling, called to apologize. Another neighbor said Karen had done the same thing to them, promising their property as for sale without their consent. That's when I realized the depth of her scheme. This wasn't a one-off. This wasn't just about me. Karen had been systematically intimidating homeowners, trying to profit through property sales, falsified HOA paperwork, and fear. I spent the evening drafting a detailed report. All the violations, the videos, the neighbor statements. I labeled it HOA Fraud and Trespassing Evidence Packet. By midnight, it was sent to the district attorney's office. The next morning, deputies returned, this time with a legal notice for Karen. She had been officially charged with trespassing, fraud, and attempted property theft. She tried to maintain her composure, but when she realized the DA had her HOA records, her face paled. Thousands of dollars in fines she had collected improperly, countless fraudulent claims, everything was documented. Her husband showed up mid-morning trying to plead her case. "Please," he said, "let's handle this quietly." But Karen shook her head defiantly, waving the deputy away. She still believed she could manipulate the situation. By noon, she was being escorted to the county jail. As I watched her vanish into the back of the cruiser, I felt a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. Justice had been slow, but it had arrived. Over the next few days, neighborhood gossip spread like wildfire. The story hit local news. HOA president arrested for fraud and trespassing on private property. People called me, some just to say thank you, others to warn me about the lengths Karen would go. I kept quiet. Let her be the story. Then came the twist I didn't expect. A week later, while inspecting my barn, I found a small folder hidden behind a loose plank in the tack room. Inside were copies of HOA bylaws, property transfer agreements, and bank statements. Documents showing she had been preparing to sell not just my ranch, but properties from 3 other families. Her plan was meticulous: manipulate HOA authority, pressure owners with false violations, and profit from early sales without their consent. It was worse than I thought. She hadn't just tried to sell my ranch. She was running a network of intimidation and theft right under everyone's nose. I immediately turned the evidence over to the district attorney. By the following week, the case had expanded. Karen wasn't just facing trespassing and fraud. She was now under investigation for organized property theft schemes. The HOA board was dissolved temporarily, pending a full audit. Other victims came forward. Some had already lost trust, some had moved out, but this time they had proof. I remember walking the ranch that evening, the sunset painting everything gold. The horses grazed quietly. My property was mine again, untouched, free. But I knew that Karen, in her arrogance, hadn't expected anyone to fight back, especially not someone who had spent decades in law enforcement. And the lesson hit me. Sometimes, the people who wield the most power think they are untouchable, until they meet the wrong person. The following weekend, neighbors threw a small gathering on the main road. Nothing fancy, just gratitude and relief. People shared stories of Karen's antics, laughed nervously at some of her more absurd violations, and quietly celebrated justice. Kids played in the fields without fear of HOA patrols. Families felt safe again. That's when Emily, my daughter, tugged at my hand. She pointed toward the barn and whispered, "Daddy, is she gone?" I knelt down, looking her in the eyes. "She's gone, sweetheart. And no one's ever going to bother our ranch again. Not her, not anyone." She smiled, her little face glowing in the late afternoon sun. "Good. I didn't like how she yelled at you." "And me," I hugged her tight. "No one will. Not while I'm here." But even as life returned to normal, I knew the story wasn't over. Karen would face the courts, sure, but her reputation was ruined. Her authority over the HOA had vanished, and the message was clear to anyone who might try the same. You can't bully people who know their rights, and you certainly can't underestimate someone who's ready to fight for justice. Weeks later, the sheriff called. "Walker, you're being asked to testify in the expanded HOA case. They want everything on record." I laughed quietly. Happy to. Because in the end, it wasn't about winning a fight. It was about protecting what's yours, standing up for your family, and making sure people like Karen learn that power without accountability is meaningless. And from that day forward, every time I walk across my ranch, watch the sunset, and hear the wind through the trees, I know one thing. Justice is worth waiting for, and it tastes sweeter when it's earned. They thought the story ended with her arrest. But a month later, we found a shocking secret in her files that rocked the neighborhood even harder. Watch the next video to see what she was hiding. You won't believe it.